please, don't take her!
Lily!
Edward, please, don't do this! How dare you! Stop this immediately!
Just moments before Duke Edward Ashbourne was meant to say his wedding vows, his 8-year-old daughter was dragged from the chapel in tears. The bride had ordered that the child be removed from every family portrait. No one dared object until the nanny stepped into the aisle and said, "Stop this wedding." The private chapel at Ashbourne Hall had never held so many guests. Noble families filled every polished pew while candles burned beneath stained glass windows and white roses covered the altar. The marriage between Duke Edward Ashbourne and Lady Rosamond Vale would unite two of England's most powerful houses. To society, it was a perfect match. To Edward, it was a practical one. 3 years had passed since the death of his wife. During that time, Ashbourne Hall had become quiet, orderly, and unbearably cold. Edward believed Rosamond would restore stability to his household and provide the guidance his daughter needed. He had never asked Lily whether she wanted a new mother. That morning, Lady Lily Ashbourne stood inside the bridal chamber wearing a pale ivory dress that had once belonged to her mother. Her dark hair had been carefully curled, and a small gold locket rested against her chest. Inside it was a miniature portrait of the late Duchess. Amelia Hart knelt before her and straightened the ribbon around her waist. "You look beautiful," she said. Lily touched the locket nervously. "That is not the same." Amelia looked into the child's uncertain eyes. Edward loved his daughter. Of that, Amelia had no doubt. But his grief had made him distant, and Lily had learned to hide every difficult emotion so that she would not add to his sorrow. Before Amelia could answer, the door opened. Lady Rosamond entered, wearing a magnificent white silk gown. Pearls decorated her golden hair, and her expression carried the polished calm that had convinced London she would make an ideal duchess. Her gaze fell immediately upon Lily's locket. "What is that?" Lily covered it with one hand. "It belonged to Mamma." Rosamond's smile became thin. "You cannot wear it today." Lily stared at her. "Why?" "Because today is not a memorial service." Amelia rose. "Her Grace's portrait will be hidden beneath the flowers she carries. Few guests will even notice it." "I noticed it." Rosamond stepped closer to Lily. "After today, this family will have a new duchess. You must learn not to cling to the dead whenever you wish to attract your father's attention." Lily's face lost its color. "I do not do that." "Then remove it." The child's fingers trembled around the locket. Amelia moved between them. Lady Lily was told she could wear something of her mother's. By whom? By His Grace. Rosamond's eyes hardened. Edward agreed that she might wear the dress. Lily tried to pull the chain over her head, but her hands shook so badly that Amelia had to help her. Rosamond took the locket and placed it on the dressing table. "There. That is better." A servant appeared at the door to announce that the chapel was ready. Amelia's voice remained calm though anger had begun to rise beneath it. "She will compose herself." Rosamond turned toward the servant. "Take Lady Lily to the cloakroom. She is not to enter the chapel or appear in the wedding portraits." Lily stepped back. "Papa wants me there. Your father wants one peaceful day." The servant hesitated, but Rosamond's expression left no room for refusal. The servant had locked the door from the outside, perhaps believing it was the only way to prevent Lily from running toward her father. Amelia opened it with a key borrowed from the housekeeper. Lily sat on the floor between heavy winter coats, struggling not to sob. Amelia knelt beside her. "What else has Lady Rosamond said to you?" The child shook her head. "Lily, I cannot protect you from something I do not understand." Then Lily whispered, "She said I am leaving after the wedding." Amelia went still. "Leaving for where?" "A school in Scotland. She said girls become disobedient when servants spoil them." "Did your father tell you this?" "No." "Have you spoken to him?" Lily wiped her. "He is finally happy. If I ruin the wedding, he will hate me." Amelia felt something break inside her. Edward had spent months arranging a marriage he believed would give Lily security, while the child had spent those same months believing she was about to lose her home. Amelia stood and held out her hand. "Come with me." The ceremony had already begun when the chapel doors opened. Every head turned. Rosamond stood beside Edward at the altar, her hand resting lightly in his. The priest had just begun the formal address when Amelia walked down the aisle with Lily behind her. Rosamond's expression sharpened. Edward looked first at Amelia, then at his daughter's tear-stained face. Miss Hart, he said, his voice low with warning. What is the meaning of this? Amelia stopped several steps from the altar. This wedding cannot continue until your grace knows what has been done to your daughter. Whispers moved through the pews. Rosamond turned toward the guests. This servant has become dangerously attached to the child. My position, Amelia replied, is to protect Lady Lily when no one else is listening. Edward's jaw tightened. He disliked public disorder, and Amelia had just created the greatest scandal Ashbourne Hall had witnessed in years. Yet Lily was trembling behind her. Edward stepped down from the altar. What happened? Rosamond reached for him. Edward, do not reward this performance. He pulled his hand away. Then he looked at Lily. Did Lady Rosamond order you to leave the chapel? Lily looked toward Rosamond and immediately lowered her eyes. A child did not say such a thing unless someone had already convinced her that her father's love could be taken away. Rosamond descended the altar steps and took Edward's arm. She is frightened because Miss Hart has manipulated her. Remove the servant, calm the child, and we may still prevent this humiliation from becoming permanent. Lily suddenly released Amelia's hand. Before anyone could stop her, she turned and ran from the chapel. Lily, Edward moved after her. Rosamond's voice rang through the silence. If you leave now, there will be no wedding to return to. Edward stopped in the center of the aisle. Behind him stood the woman he had promised to marry. Ahead of him, the chapel doors were still swinging from the force of his daughter's exit. For years, Edward had believed duty meant protecting his family's name. Now, with all of England watching, he had only seconds to decide whether his daughter was part of the family he meant to protect. Edward did not look back at the altar. He ran through the chapel doors and found Lily at the end of the corridor, struggling with the handle of her mother's old sitting room. Her small shoulders shook beneath the ivory dress Rosamond had tried to remove from the ceremony. Lily. The child froze. Edward approached slowly, as though sudden movement might send her running again. Look at me. She obeyed, but her face held an expression no 8-year-old should have learned. So well the careful fear of someone waiting to discover whether she was about to be blamed. Edward knelt before her. Why did you believe I would send you away? Lily pressed both hands against her skirt. Lady Rosamond said it would be better for everyone. Better how? She said Ashbourne Hall could not have two daughters of the house who expected to be important. Edward stared at her. You are my only daughter. She said after the wedding you would have a new family. His chest tightened. You are my family. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Then why did you never ask if I wanted her here? The question silenced him. Edward had arranged tutors, clothing, medical care, and every comfort wealth could provide. He had believed these things proved he was a devoted father. Yet he could not remember the last time he had sat beside Lily simply to ask what frightened her. The chapel doors opened behind him. Rosamond appeared with the Dowager Duchess Margaret and several concerned relatives. Amelia followed at a distance. Rosamond's voice was gentle now. Edward, the guests are waiting. Lily is distressed, but allowing her to control the ceremony will only teach her that tears bring rewards. Lily moved closer to her father. Edward noticed. It was small, almost instinctive, but it revealed more than any accusation Amelia could have made. What school in Scotland? He asked. Rosamond's expression barely changed. I considered several respectable institutions. You discussed sending my daughter away without speaking to me. I intended to present the best option after we were married. Margaret stepped forward. Ashbourne Hall requires order. Lily has become too dependent upon Miss Hart, and a proper school might encourage discipline. Amelia's face remained calm, but Edward saw anger in her eyes. Rosamond gave a soft, disbelieving laugh. How convenient. Amelia turned toward Edward. Lady Lily's belongings have already been removed from the East Nursery. A trunk containing school uniforms was delivered 3 days ago. She was told she would leave shortly after the wedding. Edward looked at Rosamond. Is that true? I prepared for a possibility. Nothing more. Lily whispered. She took Mama's music books away. Rosamond's patience finally broke. This house cannot remain a shrine to a dead woman forever. The corridor fell silent. Edward rose. You will return to your rooms. Edward, the wedding will not continue today. Rosamond's face hardened. You would humiliate my family because a frightened child misunderstood a private conversation? No. I am postponing it because my daughter is afraid of the woman I intended to place in her home. Margaret took his arm. You are allowing a servant to destroy an alliance that protects this family. Edward looked toward Amelia. She stood beside Lily, neither triumphant nor relieved. Her concern remained entirely with the child. That servant, he said, was the only person who noticed Lily believed she was about to be abandoned. For the rest of the afternoon, guests departed beneath a storm of speculation. Edward remained with Lily in her mother's old sitting room. He attempted to ask gentle questions, but the child answered only when Amelia was present. Whenever Rosamond's name was mentioned, Lily's fingers tightened around the gold locket Amelia had returned to her. Later, after Lily had fallen asleep, Edward summoned Amelia to his study. The unfinished wedding decorations still filled the halls, turning every corridor into a reminder of the scandal. You interrupted my wedding before hundreds of guests, he said. Yes. You could have come to me privately. The ceremony had already begun. You might have prevented that. I tried to speak with Lady Rosamond. She locked your daughter in a cloakroom. Edward's jaw tightened. Amelia continued more quietly. Lily has been frightened for weeks. Her belongings were moved. She was forbidden to enter her mother's music room. She saw a school trunk outside the nursery and was told she would leave after your marriage. Why did she not tell me? Because she believed your happiness depended upon her silence. The words struck him with painful accuracy. Edward turned toward the fire. I love my daughter. I know. Then do not speak as though I have neglected her. Amelia hesitated. You have provided for her perfectly. He faced her. That is not the same thing. No, Your Grace. Her voice held no cruelty, which made the answer harder to dismiss. A child can have warm rooms, expensive tutors, and every meal prepared for her, yet still believe she is unwanted. Lily needed you to ask what she felt. Instead, everyone around her decided what was best. My position is the reason Lily told me what she was too afraid to tell you. You placed yourself between a father and his daughter. Amelia's expression changed. No, Your Grace. The distance was already there. The truth in her words angered him more than insolence would have. You will no longer interfere in decisions concerning this family. Amelia's face lost its color, but she did not plead. When must I leave? Tomorrow morning. She lowered her head. As you command, Your Grace. When Amelia returned to her room, Lily was waiting beside the half-packed trunk. You are leaving because of me. No. You stopped the wedding for me. I stopped it because it should not have continued. Lily gripped Amelia's sleeve. Only because everyone was watching. Amelia had no easy answer. Your father has forgotten that love must listen, she said. But forgetting is not the same as never loving you. Lily began to cry. Amelia held her until she fell asleep. Before dawn, Amelia left Ashbourne Hall in a hired carriage. She did not know that Lily stood behind the nursery curtain, watching until the carriage disappeared beyond the gates. Several hours later, Edward entered his study and found a leather folder beneath a stack of wedding documents. Inside was Lily's completed school application. Rosamond had signed it as the child's future guardian. The departure date was 3 days after the wedding. A second document instructed the school to restrict Lily's letters for 6 months so that unhealthy attachments to her father and domestic servants might be corrected. Edward read the sentence twice. Then he ran upstairs. Lily's room was empty. The window stood open to the winter air. Her small traveling cloak was gone, along with a pair of boots and the purse where she kept several coins. The gold locket lay open on the floor. A stable boy had seen her before sunrise. She had asked which road led to the railway station. Edward ordered every horse prepared and every road searched. When he confronted Rosamond, she remained disturbingly calm. She will return when she realizes a tantrum cannot control you. Edward looked at the woman he had almost married. For the first time, he did not see an elegant bride or a suitable duchess. He saw the person who had made his daughter believe that disappearing was the only way to be heard. Edward reached the railway station before noon, but no one had seen Lily board a train. A porter remembered a small girl asking about the road toward the northern platform. Another had watched her turn away after learning that a ticket cost more than the coins in her purse. She had never left the town. That knowledge should have brought relief. Instead, Edward imagined his 8-year-old daughter wandering alone through the winter cold. afraid to return to the home where she believed she no longer belonged. She opened the door wearing the same traveling dress in which she had left the house. Her face changed the moment she saw him. What happened? Lily is missing. The anger Amelia might have felt toward him vanished. When? Before dawn. She asked a stable boy for directions to the station, but she never boarded a train. Amelia reached for her cloak. Did she take anything? A few coins. Her traveling bag. Nothing else. What about the locket? Edward hesitated. She left it behind. Amelia stopped fastening her cloak. Lily had clung to that portrait through every fear and lonely night. Where would she go? Edward asked. Amelia closed her eyes, searching through every conversation the child had trusted her with. Then she remembered. There is an old cottage beside the lake. Edward frowned. The summer house. Her mother used to take her there before she became ill. Lily once told me it was the last place she remembered the three of you being happy together. The lake stood several miles beyond the estate's northern boundary. The road was narrow and nearly impassable after winter rain. Edward and Amelia rode there alone. By the time they reached the cottage, rain had soaked through their coats. Edward dismounted before his horse had fully stopped. Lily. There was no answer. He forced open the swollen wooden door. The cottage smelled of damp stone and cold ashes. Edward dropped to his knees. Lily's skin was burning with fever. He lifted her into his arms, calling her name until her eyes slowly opened. Papa. I am here. Her fingers tightened weakly against his coat. Are you angry? The question nearly destroyed him. No. I did not mean to make everyone unhappy. You did nothing wrong. Lily looked past him toward Amelia, who was already rebuilding the fire. Will you still marry Lady Rosamond? Edward could have offered comfort immediately. He could have promised anything to stop the fear in her eyes. But Lily had suffered because too many adults spoke without listening. No, he said. I will not marry her. The child's body relaxed against him. Edward lowered his forehead to her hair. I should have heard you before you had to run away. I should have asked what frightened you. I am sorry, Lily. She began to cry silently. For the first time since his wife's death, Edward did not retreat from grief because he feared making it worse. He held his daughter and allowed her tears to soak into his coat. While searching the cottage for dry blankets, Amelia discovered a narrow wooden box beneath a loose floorboard. Edward recognized his late wife's initials carved into the lid. Inside were several letters, a small book of pressed flowers, and one sealed envelope addressed to Amelia Hart. Amelia stared at it. I have never seen this. Edward opened the letter only after Amelia gave permission. The handwriting belonged to his wife. Dear Amelia, if my illness takes me from Lily, remain near her for as long as she needs you. Edward will love our daughter. Of that, I have no doubt. Yet grief may make him mistake giving Lily everything with truly seeing her. Do not replace me. Help her remember that love does not disappear simply because a person does. Edward could not continue for several moments. His wife had understood him better than he had understood himself. Even while dying, she had feared that his grief would turn fatherhood into a list of responsibilities safely managed from a distance. Amelia touched the edge of the letter. She did not ask me to stand between you and Lily. No, Edward said. She asked you to remain because she feared I would fail to stand close enough. By evening, Lily's fever had begun to ease. A carriage arrived from Ashbourne Hall carrying blankets, medicine, and the estate manager who brought documents discovered in Rosamond's writing desk. Among them was a payment made to a physician willing to declare Lily emotionally unstable. The false report claimed the child should be removed from Ashbourne Hall and denied contact with anyone who encouraged her attachment to the past. Once married, Rosamond would have used the report to control Lily's education and eventually the trust left to her by her mother. Edward read every page beside his sleeping daughter. Then he folded the documents with deliberate care. Take Lily back to Ashbourne Hall, he told Amelia. Stay with her until I return. Where are you going? To finish what should never have begun. The Vale family had gathered in the chapel with the Dowager Duchess, demanding that the wedding continue privately before news of the scandal spread further. Edward entered carrying the forged medical report. Rosamond rose from the front pew. Have you found the child? My daughter has a name. Her face tightened. Before the witnesses, Edward revealed everything: the secret school application, the order restricting Lily's letters, the payment to the physician, and Rosamond's attempt to gain control over the child's inheritance. Rosamond accused Amelia of planting the evidence. Edward did not raise his voice. "Miss Hart did not force me to ignore my daughter. That failure belongs to me." He removed the wedding ring from his pocket and placed it on the altar. "There will be no marriage." Rosamond left Ashbourne Hall beneath the stares of the same society she had hoped to rule. But when Edward returned to Lily's room, he found Amelia's trunk packed once again. "You need not leave," he said. "Lily has her father now. I want you to stay." Amelia looked at him steadily, as her nanny. Edward cared for her too deeply to offer a careless answer born from fear of losing her. Yet his silence told Amelia what he still could not say. She lowered her head. "Goodbye, Your Grace." The following morning, Lily stood beside Edward at the window as Amelia's carriage disappeared beyond the gates. "Why do the women who love this family always have to leave?" she asked softly, "before you understand them." In the months after Amelia left Ashbourne Hall, Edward did not hire another nanny. For the first time since his wife's death, he arranged his days around Lily instead of expecting the household to arrange Lily around him. He joined her for breakfast even when estate matters waited on his desk, and allowed her to choose whether she wished to attend school or continue studying at home. When Lily spoke about her mother, Edward no longer changed the subject. Together they visited the family chapel and placed fresh flowers beside the late Duchess's portrait. Edward told Lily stories he had kept buried beneath grief, and slowly the child stopped treating her memories as something that might offend him. Ashbourne Hall remained grand, but it no longer felt silent. One afternoon, Lily entered Edward's study carrying a letter. "It's from Miss Hart." Edward looked up too quickly. Amelia had written to Lily several times but never directly to him. "She has opened a home for girls," Lily explained. "Some were sent away because their families did not want them." The letter described a modest house near the coast where abandoned and unwanted girls received lessons, food, and training. Amelia had used nearly all her savings to rent the property, but she needed books, beds, and teachers. Edward read the letter twice. Then he asked Lily, "Would you like to visit her?" Her face brightened. They arrived several weeks later. Amelia stood in the garden teaching 3 girls how to plant herbs. When she saw Edward and Lily at the gate, surprise crossed her face followed by guarded warmth. Lily ran into her arms. Edward waited until Amelia looked at him. "You need not purchase my gratitude, Your Grace." "I know." He handed her a document. It established an independent trust for the home. The money could be used only for the girls' care and education. Amelia would control every decision while Edward would have no authority over the property. "You would fund a place that does not bear your name?" she asked. "It should bear the name of the person who built it." Amelia studied him carefully. The man before her was not asking her to return to Ashbourne Hall or reward her for caring for Lily. He was offering support without demanding ownership. At last, she accepted the document. Edward and Lily returned often. Sometimes Edward repaired fences badly enough that the girls laughed at him. Sometimes he reviewed accounts while Amelia planned lessons. He never interfered unless invited, and he never treated her work as an extension of his estate. Their affection grew quietly, yet Amelia remained afraid that loving Edward would force her into the place once held by Lily's mother. One evening, Lily found her alone beside the school garden. "I do not need another mother," the child said. Amelia's expression softened with sadness. "I know. But I would like you to remain someone who loves us." Amelia looked toward the house where Edward was helping 2 girls hang a crooked shelf. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine staying without replacing anyone. A year after the interrupted wedding, Ashbourne Hall opened a school for girls who had been denied education because of poverty or family shame. The late Duchess's former sitting room became a library bearing her name, preserving her memory instead of hiding it. After the opening ceremony, Edward asked Amelia to meet him there. Her old letter from the Duchess rested safely beneath glass beside the gold locket Lily had once left behind. "I believed a new wife was meant to replace what this house had lost," Edward said. Rosamond encouraged that belief because it served her. But love does not erase those who came before it. He stepped closer, though he did not touch Amelia until she allowed him to take her hand. I will never ask you to abandon your work or return as Lily's nanny. I am asking whether you would choose a life beside us, one that remains your own. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. You finally learned how to ask rather than command. I had an excellent teacher. She smiled. Yes, Edward, I choose you. Their wedding was held in the same chapel where Amelia had once stopped another ceremony. This time, there were no grand alliances and no guests invited merely for rank. The girls from Amelia's home filled the first pews while Lily stood between Edward and Amelia, holding both their hands. No one asked her to hide her mother's locket. No one removed her from the family portrait. When the priest paused before beginning the vows, Lily looked from her father to Amelia. Then she smiled. You may continue. Amelia had once stopped a wedding because no family should begin by casting out a child. A year later, Lily began another because she finally knew she would never be asked to disappear again.